believe this is happening.
Yeah! Welcome back to staff inspection. And my car is back on the lift. So when we last left off, I did upper control arms, I did knuckles, and had the rear diff welded. Pretty much it was drift ready. Took it out to Grange, had a pretty good time with the welded diff. Pretty easy to drive, but I'm kind of a nerd about differentials coming from the all-wheel drive world, rally world, and all that. So I always wanted to run a 1.5 way. The welded diff I felt was just kind of a band-aid fix for a daily driver like this. So popped the diff out, got the axles hanging and all that. I decided to go some of this goodness. I went 1.5 way because this thing still, at the end of the day, is a daily driver. When I was pulling into parking spots, parking garage, anywhere, so much chatter, chirping, it's a pain in the ass to drive. And kind of wanted to see what it drifts like with a 1.5 way. So went with the cause, and here today, actually, to show us how this all works is Mr. Cause USA himself, Ray.
Hi.
How's it going, Ray? Great to meet you. Ray's already got the diff apart here, and as you can see, we got some booger welds going on in there. That's not Ray's work. Ray's putting this goodness in right here. So Ray, can you give us a little background on yourself and what we're putting in today?
First off, my name is Ray Nakadate. I started Cars USA back in 1999, and this year's our 20th anniversary. And today we're going to be installing a 1.5 way diff into your Lexus, and hopefully you can have a more happy daily driving experience.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm super excited, and this is kind of insane. I have the guy that started Cause USA here installing the diff. Even more exciting is all this. Here's a little scale model that we got going of what'll be going in. You can see a bunch of gears and plates and everything. We'll go into a little bit on how all that works. Kind of the big thing we want to talk about today is the fact that, you know, diffs and backlash and setting all that stuff can be kind of intimidating, but really you can just do all this stuff at the garage yourself as long as you have a press, maybe a vise, and you don't really need any crazy specialty tools or anything.
No.
Just regular hand tools,
Yes.
a press.
Yeah, as long as you're not touching the final gear, you know, just diff install, it's very easy and simple.
Which is something I never thought I'd hear in my life. Diff install being super simple, but we're gonna check it out. We're gonna see how it all goes together. And then this weekend, I'm gonna take it back out to Grange for a little back-to-back testing of what it's like living with a welded diff versus something like a 1.5 way. So we got the old unit out here. We got the ring gear. Ring gear's off. Ring gear's cleaned. You can see some of those welds in there.
Now you got the new diff, so might as well put new parts in it. So
Yeah.
I recommend new carry bearings all the time.
Okay.
And also, since it's a good timing to change the axle seals, so I normally recommend changing the seals too.
You might as well, since everything's already out. This
Yeah.
is the easiest time to do that stuff. So we got, I mean, just genuine Toyota parts. Funny enough, these diffs are pretty much the same exact diff as you get in an IS300, BRZ, FRS, all that kind of stuff. Same part number, so you see the little Toyota Lexus. I'll put the part number in the description below, just in case you guys are looking to rebuild your diff, but it's really just carrier bearings for both sides and axle seals. So these guys right here, that'll get refreshed. Even though they're low mile, when you weld a diff, you actually get a ton of little metal flakes and stuff running around. And when I pulled mine out, it was on the magnet. It was like that much metal on there. So because that was all running through the bearings and everything, we'll do a quick refresh on that stuff. And that's just too nice to put old stuff back on. So I'm gonna give it some freshness. So if you don't have a vise big enough to fit the whole diff in, what we're doing here is we're gonna heat up the ring gear with some MAP gas, and then pretty much just take a dead blow, stack it on some metal, and get that ring gear pressed on. So instead of using those locking bolts, what we're going with, just a little classic red Loctite on there.
Yeah.
Keep those bolts in, just because that bracket doesn't really fit in. So red Loctite keeps it solid in there. Looks like that ring gear went on pretty easy too. I think the heat helps a lot.
Oh, well, yeah. As I was heating up, the differential started going by itself.
Like settled in.
Yeah.
Nice. Ray was telling me that on the RX-7s, FD RX-7s, a lot of times you'll get a lot of trouble. If you don't heat up the ring gear, it actually kind of goes on just a little bit uneven, and it might feel like a warped diff casing, but it's actually the ring gear that doesn't mesh properly. Ray's getting this stuff done with the quickness. It looks like we already got the diff back in the pumpkin, looking super fresh. New seals, new bearings, all that good stuff. And really, pretty much just using simple shop tools, nothing crazy, no insane presses or anything. Hammered it in with a dead blow, and then just a little press action to get the carrier bearings in. There you go. So what Ray's testing out now that everything's assembled again, is there are two shims on either side that kind of keep the tightness of how much play the ring gear has. So right now it's a little bit tight. Ray's got a whole bag of shims going on here that he brought. I'm gonna take that back apart, get the shims going, hopefully get a little bit more play in there. Because otherwise, if it's shimmed wrong, Ray, what it's just premature wear on the bearings?
Well,
or
this will be too tight, so it's gonna eventually destroy the final gear. So not enough play in between the gears.
Right.
And if it's too loose, it's too much backlash, and we can break up the teeth when you do burnout or something like that.
Definitely trying to avoid that. We'll try and reshim it, see if we can get closer. Alright, so now we're reshimmed, set up. I'm gonna check the measurement on that.
5,000 right now.
Wow. So it's supposed to be between 4 and 6.
About 4.5 to 5,000.
Awesome. So that's right on the money. Perfect. Man, awesome. Glad you brought the shims. Thanks for bringing those out. And if someone doesn't have the shims at home, they could just order them from Cause, or?
No, they have to order through the dealership.
Oh, so you order your...
Yeah, it takes about a day or two.
Okay, that's not bad. If you do go to measure your lash and you need different shimming, just make sure on either side it's good. You can order them from the dealer. Just check your sizes.
Yeah, I know it's very tempting to go out and drive the car, but
yeah,
you just have to wait.
But you save a lot of pain later on by doing it right the first time. Cool. So yeah, make sure that lash is set correctly. Otherwise, you'll be in a world of hurt later. It might work for a little bit, but there's a lot of premature wear going on everywhere else. So, but this looks good. So now we'll get this all bolted back up together, and then I'll have to go do break-in procedure and all that good stuff, and then we'll go and test it, see how it drives compared to the welded diff. Man, all right, that was pretty fucking sick to me. Shout out to Cause USA, Ray, for coming out, installing this thing. You know, the whole goal was to show you guys that if you have the proper tools, you can install a diff at home. It doesn't have to be the hardest thing to do in the world. Just barely out of my technical know-how. All right, yeah, it was pretty far out of my technical know-how. I didn't want to mess this thing up, but really, if you know what you're doing, you could install one of these back home pretty easy. So, yeah, the diff is in there, hyped on that. So I went out, this is the Cause gear oil. That's what I'm gonna put in eventually, but I'm gonna break in with just some conventional stuff, 80W90. I'm gonna pop that in here, do the little break-in procedure. Got my RTV, red high temp RTV gasket maker, cause drifting, shit's gonna get pretty high temp. Gonna pop that on, get it in the car, get it broken in. Break-in procedure is, Ray told me, you do figure eights for 30 minutes and no power on the loop. Put power down only in a straight line and then go back in the same loop. So half an hour, go around, conventional gear oil, come back in, let it cool down a little bit, drain that old fluid, put this dopeness in. So I'm gonna do that right now, put the RTV on. I'm gonna seal this thing up, get the old fluid in, get this car ready for Grange tomorrow so I can see kind of back to back from my previous day with the welded diff, see how this thing drives with the 1.5 weight from Cos. All right, so after letting the RTV cure on just the cap laying down for 15 minutes, bolted it up, just hand tight all around in a cross pattern. Let the RTV cure some more for about an hour as it sits right here. So now it's been about an hour, hour and a half. I'm gonna torque it down around 35 foot-pounds on the back here, and I'm gonna fill it up, put it in the car, and go break this thing in. 1.3 quarts of this stuff. That should do it. It's dark outside, but diff is in. Everything's torqued down. Looks like the gasket sealer RTV is holding, at least for now. Got these torqued down, torqued. Everything's torqued. Gonna put it down and go and do figure eights for half an hour, I guess. All right, here we go. Figure eights, power in a straight line, no power on the turn. That was slightly ridiculous, but I guess it's done. Draining the old fluid now. Can't really see any metal flakes or anything, but who actually knows? Actually, looks like there's a bit of break-in material on that. Draining that, I don't know. The break-in procedure was kind of weird, but I guess it's normal for these to clunk around a bit. It really felt like it was working. You could feel when you hit the gas, even a little bit in a corner, like the wheels would bite and chirp. So I don't know, I'm gonna fill this thing back up with the actual Cos gear oil. 1.3 quarts, bring this thing to Grange tomorrow, and fingers crossed, hope this thing works, see how much better it drives. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for the JZX. The diff's in there, manual trans, took it to Grange. Drives like a dream, to be honest. I ran the welded diff for a little bit. It was a pain in the ass on the daily. Now I got the 1.5 way in there. So now that the JZX daily drifter project is pretty dialed, super happy with where it's at right now. It needs a couple little things, maybe an intercooler, maybe some seats, but nothing major. But up next, I'm gonna start focusing on this thing. Check it out, coming up soon. This thing's sick. I don't think there's...
Is this too loud?
What? Hurt.
Is this interrupting your video? Is this bad?